Hey, great to have your company and welcome to Eastern Creek International Raceway in Sydney as our Amscar Series coverage for 1997 continues. On today's program, you'll see races 2 and 3, and I'm joined trackside by one of the top drivers, Kevin Waldock. Beautiful weather conditions, outstanding racing in the first event. I'm sure that will continue.
It's going fantastic. It's a great day for you, and it should be good racing for everybody, I think.
Everybody's talking about the controlled tyre nature of this event, where you're all running the same Goodyear tyres, and things have been very close so far.
Excellently close. Pretty well across the field. We've got about a second, so it's really good.
You can expect more door handle to door handle racing as we present races 2 and 3 in this first round of the Amscar Series. Let's now check out the starting grid for race 2. And they grid up in this race based on their finishing order of race 2, and by virtue of Alan McCarthy's great win, he starts on pole. Going through the field, Neil Shembry starts out of 6, Bill Adhard, Gary Wilmington, Gary Cannon and Jeff Kendrick, also from Western Australia. Now Brian Walden out of 11, position 12 is Tim Slako in the Commodore, Richard Mork and Don Pulver. And now we walk down the grid, and that is Michael Donoher in the Ultra Tune entry, who finished third in the opening event. Mal Rose on screen, who looked to have second place safely in his keeping before an unfortunate spin. I'm joined in commentary by former Bathurst and Australian National Touring Car Champion Colin Bond. All the indications are the series is off to a flying start.
It's looking good, David, and the cars look great, I must admit.
And this first event, an 8-lap journey. Great to have your company wherever you might be watching. Keep your eyes on the West Aussie, McCarthy, in the former Glen Seaton Falcon on the right-hand side of screen. Revs start to build and wear away. Mel Rose on the second row got a great start. That's him in the centre. But it was the West Aussie driver, Alan McCarthy, that showed them a clean pair of heels when they said go. That's Donoher slipping up on the inside of Mel Rose as we take race cam. But the West Australian, McCarthy, is going to lead them down into turn 2. Donoher is second, Mel Rose is third, and Bob Pearson is fourth.
And I just noticed too that Slako got a very good start. He's up on the, come right through the field. We've got Pearson in fourth. Now Pearson in the first race actually came second, pressured the leader all the way. I would expect big things from Bob actually.
Alan McCarthy out in front as we take race cam again with Mal Rose. You can see Donoher there in the Ultra Tune entry getting offline. Talking about offline, there's Bob Pearson. Some unexpected motocrossing, Colin.
It was actually, I don't know. I mean, Bob is a very talented driver, of course, and has got a very good motor car. You'd hate to be back there now, I think, after losing so much time, after doing so much work in the first race and coming a great second.
A tough battle here between second and third. McCarthy, the race leader, has booted away. Now we're on board with Waldock, who moves up on the inside of Slako in that bright pink car, and the rest of the field trailing through. They now approach the double apex, which represents turns 11 and 12 at Eastern Creek Raceway in Sydney. That's the leader, McCarthy, who hadn't driven at this circuit before this weekend, and he's been particularly quick.
Look, the car, I think, is fantastic. It's doing everything right. It's putting its power down. It's not slipping and sliding too much. I've been noticing a lot of the cars actually do slide an awful lot around the corners. It's a combination of a few things, actually, Dave. I think the tyres we've talked about before, they're quite a hard compound tyre, but they're very consistent. They're able to lap the same times virtually all day. They use the one set of tyres for the 3 races. And, you know, that's the way they've got to drive them. A little bit oversteer, get the power in early and let it slide out, coming out of the corners with a bit of power oversteer.
McCarthy again opening up a very sizable lead in this 8-lap event. Malrose second. Donoher now on screen in the Ultra Tune Commodore. A very safe percentages style driver. And a nice close-up shot of Alan McCarthy at work in the West Coast Racing Falcon, formerly owned by Glen Seaton. And it goes like it too.
Actually, with one of the main mechanics that work on the cars, one of my old mechanics actually, from Western Australia, that's Simon Negus, and I was talking to him yesterday, and they were saying that it was nice they could come out here, make a few small modifications to the car, go back out, and the car actually responded to the mods they've been doing to it. And I think that's now settling down to why the car's out in front. They've just been working at it gradually all weekend, and the car's just getting stronger and going better.
Bob Pearson in the Pro Duck Commodore, another error. Well, Bob, you've got to calm it down. He's trying a little hard. We saw him have that off earlier, and he's rejoined the race and is obviously trying to get back on equal terms with them. There's the top 3 for you: McCarthy, Malrose and Donoher. It's Falcon, Commodore, Commodore.
I just say I think Bob's probably just trying a little bit too hard now. He obviously got a reasonable start, but was back in fourth. And then finally, by having the 2 losers, it's certainly dropped down the field now.
Malrose in second, you're watching him, and he'll be desperate to try and get on equal terms with the race leader, Alan McCarthy, They were the major protagonists in race 1 before Melrose had an off. But McCarthy comfortably in control of proceedings currently. That's Kevin Waldock on screen. He tries to move up on the inside of Slaco. We'll take a break from Eastern Creek. Whatever you do, stay with us. Thanks for joining us and welcome back to Sydney's Eastern Creek International Raceway as the 97 Amscar Series coverage continues. One of the hard luck stories this weekend has been Western Australia's Tim Slaco. We caught up with him a short time ago.
We had a fuel siege that developed halfway through the race, and around certain right-hand corners we were getting no drive whatsoever, lost all fuel pressure, so it got worse and worse as we got closer to the end, and I couldn't just make it to the last lap.
Yes, Tim Slaco seems to have the gremlins worked out of the car now. And that's Michael Donoher as we resume with the action, running third in this one behind Alan McCarthy and also Melrose. There's McCarthy, and Colony seems to be trying very hard. The car's moving around a bit.
Well, they've all been trying very hard, actually, Dave. But I was just saying before that, you know, it looks great, the cars. You know, they're sliding. They're a little bit loose at the back suspension in the back end, but that's the way the drivers like to drive them, and it's obviously the fast way to drive them as well.
Man in the Gregory's entry, car 26, is Peter Dullman. He's starting to move up a lot closer now, and he's a former Australian 2-litre touring car champion, equally at home in the big 5-litre V8s. Back to McCarthy, the race leader, who continues really to defy logic this weekend, not having driven at the circuit before. He's really wheel perfect out there, apart from the odd slide, of course.
I was just looking at Waldock, you know, I think Kevin's had a few understeer problems this weekend, which they've been trying to dial out of the car. He's going much better in this race. He's really starting to give Slaco a hard time, and it'll be interesting to see who wins, I think, out of these two, because they've been at it hammer and tong for the whole race so far.
Gary Wilmington, one of the veterans of motor racing in this country, in the Falcon, and that's Peter Dullman now right behind him in Dullman's car. Beautifully turned out machine. The VP Commodore, as they head back down the 1 kilometre long main straight at Eastern Creek. And the first two drivers have really put a gap in the rest of the field here.
Well, they have. I'm just looking. Dullman started from the back of the grid, obviously, because he didn't start in the first race. They had a problem with the clutch. He's now clawing his way up through the field. He just got past Wilmington, and, you know, will be coming in, I would imagine, on the other two cars ahead of him.
Of course, this series represents the rebirth of the popular Amscar series, conducted by the Australian Racing Drivers Club at Amaroo Park for a decade, and it's good to see it back on the national motor racing calendar again. McCarthy continues to lead. It's got to be said he's under no major pressure at the moment. Melrose is in second, but struggling to get on equal terms. That's a great battle between Kevin Waldock in the CBS Mining Falcon and the Commodore of Slaco.
Yeah, actually, Slaco, Western Australian drive, and he's been in motorsport for a long time. Very good mechanic. Has always been to Bathurst on numerous occasions, you know, with the contingency that used to come across from Perth. And it's great to see him back over here this weekend.
A brake lock up there as he went through turn 9, a tricky part of the circuit, corner slightly off camber. Accelerating hard up to turns 10, and then the double apex, turns 11 and 12. And this is a really good battle you're watching between Slaco, Waldock, and also Peter Dullman now joining in as we go on board with Waldock.
There's not too much in it between the two cars. You can just sort of see now how the Holden gets away down the straight, but it's just a matter of, I think, getting on the power a little bit earlier. As the speed builds up too, the cars look to be further away, but now going to this other shot, Kevin stayed with him all the way. There's not much in it. This is the fastest corner on the track. The drivers really like getting through there. It's a great corner.
If you may have just joined us, it's appropriate we remind you that the Amscar series is boasting a tyre rule that's fairly unique. All drivers on the same Goodyear spec rubber. A cost-effective formula for these drivers. And as that shot graphically illustrates, McCarthy is giving these Goodyears a good old working out column.
Well, he is, but I must admit, this particular car has been pretty straight all weekend. You know, remember in the other race, there was the other two Holdens behind him were quite sliding, you know, from the oversteer out all the time out of the corners. But I think McCarthy's car looks really good.
The West Coast Racing Falcon now on screen leads this event, heading back towards the main straight. Melrose still second. Donoher in the Ultra-Tune Commodore is third. And Slaco, the battle for 4th, 5th and 6th on in earnest as the Gregory's entry of Dolman goes through. Nothing between this trio, fighting for every inch of bitumen. And back onto the main chute they run. That's Donoghue way up the end of the main straight. You saw at the top of that shot. And now Dulman out of the slipstream. He and Waldock running side by side across the line. And Dulman's going to have a good line through there. Exhilarating left-hand sweeper at the end of this straight. One of the really good points about Eastern Creek.
Well, there aren't too many places where you can pass on the circuit, but obviously down the straight and into this fast left-hander is the ideal place to overtake cars.
A lot of drivers look for the opportunity into turn 2 as well, the hairpin, as they tend to button off the speed. Often they'll run wide, and plenty of drivers utilise the slingshot up on the inside. That battle continues. Peter Dulman's moved up one more spot. Stay with us. This is a ripper at Eastern Creek as we take a break. As we welcome you back to Eastern Creek International Raceway in Sydney, we're 1.5 laps from home in race 2 of the first round for 97 of the Amscar series. And the battle still continues. Oh, Peter Dulman has had an off. Under brakes heading down towards the right-hander at turn 9. A cloud of dust. I was about to say the battle for 4th, 5th and 6th still continues. One of them, and one of the top runners, has now fallen out.
Yeah, I don't know what actually happened there, because the road goes right and Peter's actually gone left. He must have just come down looking for an inside pass, I think, on the car in front, realised there wasn't enough room and just sort of gone left and just kept on going left.
The top 3 for you on screen. Alan McCarthy in the Falcon. Mal Rose runs 2nd. That's now him on screen. Michael Donoghue is 3rd. Rose in the Fairfax Community Newspapers Commodore. And they're now on their last racing lap of this 3.93 kilometre venue. Slaco is now followed by Waldock. They're running 4th and 5th on the circuit. And it has been a terrific battle.
Well, it has. They've been at it all the way through this particular race, actually. I must admit that, you know, Kevin's been in front of Slaco. Slaco sort of got back, and then Dulman obviously coming through. And they've now lost Dulman. And just see whether Kevin can actually make a bit of a last lap dash here, I guess, somewhere on Slaco. But the winner's McCarthy. He's out on his own now and doing very nicely.
And Bill Attard in the Xerox Shop Commodore VP currently runs 5th on the circuit. That's the race leader, though, McCarthy. In the former Glen Seaton Falcon, beautifully turned out car, the West Coast Racing entry. And he's going to make it 2 starts for 2 wins here today at Eastern Creek International Raceway. On the other side of this race, on today's program, you'll see a 5-lap sprint, which represents race 3 in round 1 of the Amscar series. He's just got a couple of corners to run, Colin.
He has. I noticed that Mal's going to get 2nd, which I think is good for Mal. I mean, Mal was really pressuring in the first race, had to lose and drop back. Pearson hasn't really appeared, although I know he must be there and gaining on them, but he's had 2 loses in this race, which has dropped him right back. I would have thought it would have been fought out, actually, between McCarthy and Pearson and probably Mal Rose, but, you know, Pearson's gone. There's a checkered flag, and obviously McCarthy the winner. So
the West Australian doing it again. Mal Rose 2nd, Michael Donoghue 3rd. Good performance. Slaco will finish 4th in a fiercely contested battle with Kevin Waldock. Here's Joanne Gardner in the pits with the race winner.
We're very happy. 1 more to go. But as I said to you earlier, I think everyone's got the same tyre problem, so it's just a matter of keeping it straight, keeping it on the track, and like I say, we're hoping, we're keeping our fingers crossed.